Julian Casablancas is here to be guest DJ on the Current's Theft of the Dial, and you might know him as fronting the Strokes, but he's on tour right now in support of his solo album, Phrazes for the Young. And we just heard a song from that record, River of Brake Lights. So, Julian, welcome to the Current Studios.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Phrazes for the Young is your debut solo record. I think it's worth noting that you aren't the only one in the Strokes who has kind of gone off to do a solo record or a side project. What have some of the other members of the Strokes been up to when not being Strokes?
Albert, Fab, and Nikolai have done solo records.
Okay. So did you feel like I might as well too? Or was it something that you wanted to do as well but just never did?
I mean, sure. I didn't directly just think, okay, everyone's doing it. It indirectly had impact on the Strokes, so their heads were in different places. I
mean, I've never been in a band.
But you've been in a gang.
But I have been in a gang, and I still am, because the only way I can leave is if I die. So I've never been in a band, but on the outside, when you hear, well, the front man has done a solo record, the drummer is off doing a side project, the first thing I kind of think is, well, is the band going to break up? Are they heading in a new direction? Is it awkward for people to kind of go off and put energy into other projects and not kind of the main focus, which for you would be the Strokes, right?
Well, not the second, because I'm on tour.
Right. But you are making new music with the Strokes, though, right?
I guess.
You guess so? Is that something that we're going to hear sometime in the near future, or are you just kind of in the studio working on it?
B.
B? At least you're picking options that I've thrown out, so that's good. C? I haven't thought of a C yet. What made you want to record a Christmas song?
I always thought if ever I had to do a Christmas song, that would be the one from SNL. And we were just in the studio messing around with B-sides, and I can't remember who reminded me of it, but
and you just thought, what the hell, I might as well do it.
Yeah, now it's like, we can't. Now it's like the song that probably does the best. We play at every concert now.
Right.
It's like, it's a privilege and a curse. It's
right.
the song that
the decisions that you make.
I like playing it. I never thought we'd be playing it at every show. But
right, kind of out of season.
People love it.
Before I hand over the DJ duty to you, I just wanted to say congratulations on being a new dad.
Thank you.
Did you have a son or a daughter?
I had a son.
How old is your son? Like a couple months old now?
Yeah, about 2 months, 11 weeks.
Okay. So how has that changed you? Has it changed you yet?
Well, everyone says, "Oh, how has it changed you?" or "It's going to change you," but it feels. I think it's a very natural thing, you know.
Right.
I mean, it changes things in a great way, but yeah, no, it's been great.
Do you take your wife and your son on the road with you, or are they kind of just at home and you kind of go off on the road and do your thing?
A little bit of both. I mean, he hasn't come out yet, but they're kind of planning. We're playing some shows in Texas, so we're going to do a little Texas road trip.
Is it weird to think, like, all right, let's say 5 years ago, would you have thought to yourself, all right, I'm on a tour bus, and someday I'm going to have my wife and my son with me? Like, is that kind of a weird thing to wrap your head around, that, you know, life progresses and changes? And do you feel like you're kind of like growing up a little bit?
I didn't think like that. I mean, when we first started touring, I remember thinking the band, it was nice that we didn't travel with girlfriends and all that.
Right.
But
now it just makes perfect sense. Why not?
Well, I think, you know, that's what people wanted to do, so it just changed, and that's what it became. And you know, now I don't always travel with family, but when it's practical and when it's not too annoying to everyone else,
right,
I do it.
All right. Well, how about we jump into this Theft of the Dial feature? You brought some music with, and so I'm just going to let you kind of take the DJ chair and make the picks. So, first song for Theft of the Dial, what did you bring in for us?
This song by Metronomy, or Metronomy as I like to call them. A thing for me. I don't know, I just saw the video on New York Noise, which is a really rad late night public television video show in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just weird, and I like it.
All right. Well, it's Theft of the Dial on 89.3 The Current. And Julian, what did we just hear?
That was fella, this African dude, awesome Nigerian, I believe, superstar. I think my stepdad gave me the song and just put it on at parties. I don't know.
That's a good enough reason for me to want to play it on the radio. Well, let's continue. You have a couple of more picks here. Your next song would be?
Beirut. And it's just a really cool band. I've always wanted to see them live, but never been able to catch them. Just weird, modern, indie, gypsy. I don't know what it is, but I like it.
All right, it's Theft of the Dial on 89.3 The Current. You're listening to Theft of the Dial with Julian Casablancas on 89.3 The Current. Julian, what song did we just hear?
That was Jealous of Roses by a dude, I believe. A single dude by the name of Bibio.
And why did you pick that song?
Again, I just like it.
And that's, you know what, sometimes that's just a good reason.
I wish I had some great story about how I stumbled upon this song. I don't even remember how. I remember I was looking through recently added, like on my iTunes, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I listened to it, and it was rad, and I was like, that's cool.
Sweet.
It was like a gift from
the iTunes
past
god.
Julian. Like Back to the Future style.
All right, we are in studio, Theft of the Dial with Julian Casablancas, and you've got a few more picks that we're going to hear before you exit your guest DJ chair. So what would you like to go with next?
Just some quintessential Johnny Cash.
I almost feel guilty asking you, why would you pick Johnny Cash? Because why wouldn't you?
Well, just Man in Black, I think, is a cool song that some people might not know. I mean, I'm sure many listeners know the song, but just for those who don't, you should. Okay.
It's something other than Ring of Fire. We can put it that way.
Sure.
All right. It's Theft of the Dial on 89.3 The Current. We're listening to Theft of the Dial with Julian Casablancas on 89.3 The Current. Julian, the song we just heard, what was that?
That was a Radiohead song, Life in a Glass House.
And what moved you to put it on your playlist today?
I don't know. I just thought after Time's New Viking, something mellow. I don't know.
Right.
A good ender, set ender.
That's good. You're thinking sequence. I like the way you think.
Yeah, the Radiohead. I don't know, the use of horns, those kind of New Orleans horn section. Yeah, just hearing it on strings kind of blew my mind. Horns are tough, man.
So it was Time's New Viking before that. Why did you pick that song? What was the name of the song and why did you pick it?
Half Day in Hell. I don't know. It's just a lot of cool new songs coming out, and I like that song a lot. The band is a pretty cool new band. Julian,
where do you go for new music? I mean, are you constantly like hearing about new music from just people that you interact with? Do you go online to check it out?
Different, like shows, probably stations like this, you know, public radio, and I heard it's like one of the coolest stations. So, yeah, I try to listen to cool, weird stations and shows like New York Noise that just show weird stuff. Mm-hmm. I think when you're going through kind of modern weird stuff, about half of it is just nothing, but you kind of find the gems in there. All right, well, I think we're going to wrap it up. So thank you for coming in for Theft of the Dial, for playing guest DJ for us, sharing some music and why you like it. Thanks to producer Derek Stevens for being totally awesome. Julian Casablancas, thanks to you for being totally awesome. Solo album, Phrazes for the Young. We're going to go out with one more track from it. So this is Glass, and it's on 89.3 The Current.
Julian Casablancas is the lead singer for arguably the most successful new band of the 21st century, The Strokes. In fact, their debut album, Is This It?, was recently named the best album of the decade. So why does the founding member of the band find himself with a new solo album, Phrazes for the Young? I asked Julian about his motivation.
I would basically say that I didn't really want to do a solo record ever. That's not like something I've been wanting to do for years. But about two and a half years ago, a series of events led me to realize that I would be foolish not to.
Mm-hmm.
And so these songs go back that far, some of them?
Yeah. I mean, it was some stuff that, and it touches on some of the issues that I would show to band members, and I just kind of didn't really, there was kind of no interest but since then, not to talk, I don't want to just talk negative. I mean, things are fine. Things have worked themselves out on all fronts, but the result is, at this moment, there is a solo record out there.
And you're touring with this band. Yeah. Well, let's not talk about these synth sounds. Let's hear some of them. We'll start with Out of the Blue, which is how things begin.
Okay.
Out of the Blue from the World Cafe Studios, Julian Casablancas and this band. Making a solo record is a little bit different from being in a band, but I've heard you describe when you first started working with the Strokes, it was more like this is, with you just guiding what all the parts were, and that changed over the years with the Strokes. Is it stressful to do it that way, to do everything yourself, or?
No. Before I started, maybe it was a little daunting in terms of what if I go through all this and it's not good? But the actual doing of it is probably what is most fun for me, and that I could do all day and night. So I'd definitely not say stressing. Everything else is probably more stressing, and maybe live shows, and not even really anymore, to be honest, actually.
You did some work in Omaha with Mike Magus, but most of the album you did with Jason later, right?
Yeah.
And but I can totally understand how that would be if I were a musician. That would be the part that I would find the most exciting. Is this whole locking yourself in the studio, creating this stuff over and over, and everything else would almost seem like a distraction. I mean, playing live, obviously, is great, but
totally. To be honest, totally. Yeah, I mean, it would be fun to play 10 to 20 shows over a period of months.
Yeah.
But then, definitely when you just, totally. It's like a decision you have to make. At least me personally. If you could write on the road, then I think you're very lucky.
You can't do that?
I can't. I don't have the same kind of energy level of always wanting to play music. Once you're on tour, I don't mind the travel, I don't mind the touring, I don't mind all the work involved, but then when you have a free second, I'm a little fried mentally, and I just kind of want to watch TV. I don't have that natural desire to just start playing music. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. River of Brake Lights, which hopefully we can get everybody to do next. It's almost like a suite. It's got all this stuff going on. It's a very cool song. Did it come in pieces, or how did it come together?
Yeah, it did. It was originally... It was a similar kind of song, kind of like a guitar riff, harder kind of vibe. But nothing stayed except for the getting the hang of it, except that part. A few months later, I listened to it, and I loved that part, but I didn't like the rest, so I kind of rewrote everything around that part. And then that was the chorus, but as we were doing it, it kind of didn't really work as a chorus. And even though I wanted it to, so then we kind of plopped that chorus on at the end. I kind of wrote that as we were doing it.
Well, it works really well. This is a live version of River of Brake Lights. Julian Casablancas and this great band playing live with music from the solo album Phrazes for the Young, which is taken from the title of a very witty series of phrases that Oscar Wilde wrote called Phrases and Philosophies for the Use of the Young. Julian, obviously you were taken by this, but there's some really funny things here. I just printed out some of the stuff from the book.
Yeah.
In all unimportant matters, style, not sincerity is the essential. In all important matters, style, not sincerity is the essential. It's really great. And you kind of connected some of the phrases up with songs, but it's just kind of a way to get them in there, I guess.
I think. Yeah, they're. I enjoyed. I liked it. It kind of had definitely more of almost like a literary stand-up comedy feel to it.
Exactly.
I mean, it's philosophical, but it's a little more maybe skeptical on human nature.
It's Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. But yeah, I think I kind of went more when I first saw it, just something about the title and the way it was structured with just like these literally just phrases and quotes. something about it just really kind of spoke to me loudly, and it just kind of stuck with me, like the way a movie you like just kind of stays. You kind of think, oh, that was cool, but maybe this guy should have, done this, or you start kind of playing those kind of games, and that's how it all developed. It was actually going to originally be the name of potentially the last Strokes record, but I felt like the lyrics weren't really good enough to call it Phrazes for the Young. I felt like it was more like simple observations, so I just kept it to First Impressions of Earth.
There you go. Well, that makes sense. We're into a new decade, and looking back not so far to the last decade, it seems like the Strokes have got amazing. What band of the decade is this? It album of the decade? Wow! I mean, how does that sit with you? That's pretty.
That's great.
I mean, any answer you give here could be.
I love it.
Yeah, it is kind of great, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm super flattered, psyched that people feel that way. It's beyond my expectations.
And before the first album, though, you were actually you were a band of the last decade, because you guys worked a long time before that.
Well, I think we started kind of. I mean, I definitely had been working for probably 7 years leading up to. I mean, like diligently, just doing obviously other things, but probably like 98, 99 is when we started really rehearsing as the band. 99, actually. I think it was our first show.
You've famously been spending some time in L.A., and yet there's New York references all of this album, Ludlow Street, I'm thinking of in particular. Is Ludlow Street called that because it looks back at another period in your life, or just because why?
I mean, that's just the concept. I don't know. I'm always fascinated by just like New York history, and just how just looking at the history of Manhattan, or New York, and just thinking of like Indians living there, and then just 1600s, just all that, just the progression of Manhattan is just very fascinating to me. And I don't know, Ludlow Street chorus kind of just maybe popped into my head semi-accidentally, and then I just immediately connected the two. So
it's one of the few pop songs with the Lenape Indians in it. But this is a really nice one, and I love this song, which when you get down to it, it kind of has a folky vibe to it, but on the album and here too, the arrangement takes it away from that really nicely.
Thanks.
This is Ludlow Street.
Julian joins me here in the studio to talk about the album, which is called Phrazes for the Young. Hi, Julian.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Phrazes for the Young, spelled with a Z. Why? First of all, why the title?
Well, it's from the Oscar Wilde, Phrases and Philosophies for the Use of the Young. It's something I stumbled upon a few years ago. And I don't know, I was just kind of, I don't want to say obsessed with it, but I just love the idea of kind of having a neat packaged, 20 quotes in one spot. As soon as I stumbled upon it, it was kind of like, teach me of your wisdoms. And
did it actually sort of get the songwriting process? Did something in that trigger songs from you?
No, I mean, you definitely you write songs no matter what. But I think it's nice to kind of have a theme if you're gonna, put together a record.
So why did you put together what has turned out to be a solo record? I mean, was it just time? Were these songs that you had originally brought to the rest of the Strokes?
That is a good question. I don't know. The Strokes were kind of they were in a weird spot for the last 3 or 4 years. So we'd kind of meet, we'd play songs, and different people were doing different things. So it was never really a solid place to bring music into. So maybe, I don't know. It could have been, but they didn't.
All right, so it turns out to be an album of your own, 8 songs, and each song accompanied, it's got a title, and then on the CD there are like little catchphrases that go with it. Are those they're not from Oscar Wilde, they seem to be from you.
Yeah, they're I wanted. From the beginning, I just thought it'd be cool if every song had its own kind of phrase. So, kind of matched the Oscar Wilde's thing, you know. So it's called Phrases for the Young, and there actually are some phrases in there. Not like I got gypped.
So Oscar Wilde's original writing. I mean, what is it? Is it like self-help for young people?
No. Well, actually, that's the thing about it is that it was more their kind of very witty. It's almost like literary, intellectual stand-up comedy of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more, if anything, comments about how, you know, maybe superficial we all are. So I think when I read it, I was kind of, when I was doing it, I tried to, I think I'm maybe less skeptical than he is. So I don't know, maybe it's more positive or trying to be.
So Phrases for the Young, the name of the debut solo record from Julian Casablancas. What's it like to, you know, I mean, in the Strokes, we're not used to seeing you manning all the instruments. Here, it's basically, you're doing much of this yourself. What's it like to kind of step into that role?
It's actually not that different. I mean, the way the Strokes are operating at this very moment is, it's a new way, and it is, you know, everyone's doing, you know, participating equally, but in the early time, I mean, I didn't play any instruments, but I had a big hand in writing most of the parts, so it was pretty similar.
Mm-hmm. But when it comes to doing it yourself in the studio, I mean, that gives you another level of control. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say here, Julian, is you're starting to walk a fine line between DIY and control freak, you know, when you write it and you do the art direction and you do the record company and you direct the big staging that happened in L.A. How do you juggle all of that, and how does it not make you crazy?
It does make me crazy, but I mean, it's not about. I mean, I'm pretty. You know, when things are in the realm of being right, I don't think I obsess over details as much as I just want things to be good. And sometimes it takes, you know, a little extra effort to make it special to the listener or audience.
Now, you've got these 2 gigs coming up tomorrow and Friday at Terminal 5. Will these have any kind of relation to
the Jets,
the big stuff that happened in L.A.?
No. The thing is, there were 2 very different things. One was there's this crazy show going on, kind of, you know, projection screen with the, you know, history of New York, kind of city evolving, and then, like, you know, scrollers with, like, screens moving, and it's like, and basically people kind of sit there and they watch the show, and at the end they're kind of, you know, they're telling me it was mind-blowing and they've never seen anything like it, but as they're watching the show they're very still, and you kind of don't get that energy from the live audience. And then when we just play the normal rock show, even though there's still a lot going on musically, so people, I think, are entertained, and if anything, they get way more into it, and then you get more into it, and so it's almost, the shows almost feel better without it, to be honest.
So that's what's happening tomorrow and Friday at Terminal 5. It'll be a rock show, as opposed to
I suppose, yes,
as
a rock
opposed
and
to
roll
a
show.
Sense-Around, whatever that was in L.A.
Blue Man Group.
People have expressed surprise at the amount of keyboards on. You know, we heard 11th Dimension has a very keyboard-driven thing. The big surprise on this album to me, and it's sort of ironic because it's the most New York-centric song on the record, is Ludlow Street, which sounds like a weird, off-kilter kind of country song.
Yeah, I was actually, I think, I mean, forever I've been, you know, super into Johnny Cash, and I think, you know, I don't know, maybe it was like, I don't know if it was a Coldplay cover I heard or something, and I was just like, listen, I just got to do this right. I got to kind of, it was kind of, I don't want to say, you know, my version, you know, kind of Johnny Cash inspired stuff. But at the same time, I wanted it to have, you know, rhythmic things that made it kind of modern or different, or weirdly Caribbean drums. Or I don't know what's going on there, but
Well,
call it
the song is Ludlow Street. It's I don't believe I've ever heard a shout out to the Lenape Indians before in a song about New York, but it's in there. Along with a line that says, "Everything seems to go wrong when I stop drinking." You actually have stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Are things a little bit better than that line in the song might lead us to think?
Yeah, I mean the basic. It's just about being hungover. So, yeah, I've kind of. It took me about 2 years to get out of my hangover haze, but yeah, no, things are a little brighter.
And has that changed your attitude towards songwriting, being in the studio?
I mean, what frame of mind you are, I suppose, influences what comes out of you, it's music-wise. But I don't think I ever really wrote intoxicated, to be honest. So you jam maybe, and some things come out of that, but the writing process hasn't really changed. No.
Mm-hmm. But there is a big change coming soon. You're expecting your first kid.
Yes.
And then you will know about genuinely being tired and being out of your mind when you walk into the studio the next day. When are you thinking about how you're going to juggle that, having a kid just at the time? I mean, the Strokes have signed on to headline the Isle of Wight Festival this summer, so you got the solo record, you've got the Strokes happening again. Any thoughts about how you're going to do all that?
Well, I'm going to take 6 weeks, just to kind of nest at home, twigs. Just, yeah, so I think I'll have enough time to just kind of, deal with just that, and then the juggling will come later. I'm kind of not thinking about it. I like to procrastinate problems.
The album is called Phrazes for the Young, and on it there's a tune called Left and Right in the Dark. Here's a little bit of it from my guest Julian Casablancas, more of those synthesizers on this track. And so in addition to the Isle of Wight this summer, what else is happening with, when you get back to doing the long-awaited, long-delayed album with the Strokes? I mean, where are you in that process?
Well, they are possibly in a studio right now as we speak, at a secure location.
Without you?
Yeah. I mean, we worked on the song for a couple of months, 5 or 6 months, about, I don't know, half a year ago. Pretty bad with time. But, yeah, so basically the songs are pretty much worked out. So, they have begun just like a week ago. I think they started.
So, and at some point you'll go in and put down vocal tracks, and that'll be that, or?
Yeah, I've been in and out. I mean, I'm probably going to go in the next few days, actually, and hang out.
I mentioned at the top of the show how all these magazines and critics have put the first Strokes album as like one of the best of the decade. I mean, NME, the New Music Express over in England, actually called it number one for the decade. It was a platinum-selling record, and you've seen that the industry has changed a lot in the past decade. There are no more platinum records, really. Right. So what's the state of the business as you guys step back into it this year? What can you reasonably hope for?
Well, in terms of numbers, I haven't thought about it.
No, I'm not even asking about numbers. Is the CD what it was when you guys started? I mean, it seems like maybe for a lot of bands now, the CD is just the calling card. It's your business card that gets you in the door, that gets you the gigs, the tours.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't really buy CDs. I mean, I think it's, if anything, though, it's helped overall. Obviously, it's a bad for the way kind of labels have been conducting business. But I mean, I think I hope at least that it will I think it's just going to reset itself.
So for you, you're cautiously optimistic. You think whatever wrenching change the industry is going through will eventually turn out to be good for the music.
Well, I think it already is. I mean, people just have like vaster collections. I mean, I don't know if we've actually utilized it to its full potential yet, but overall, I think you have all these new bands coming out, and the influences are so eclectic because they can listen to
hear
old jazz
right,
and new songs and new bands or whatever. Just everything is at their fingertips instead of just whatever the 10 records that are out now. And yeah,
all right. Well, that's the marketplace these days, and the Strokes are wading back into it this year with a new album, the Isle of Wight performance in June. In the meantime, Julian Casablancas with his debut solo record called Phrazes for the Young. Julian, a real pleasure talking to you, and thanks for being with us on Soundcheck
Thanks for
today.
having me.